You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Welcome back to the Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about Jiu-Jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a black belt who trains at Gracie Barra Granby, located in Granby, Quebec, Canada. Welcome back, Eric Laporte.
Thank you for having me. How's it going,
man? Welcome back, sir.
How's so all good on your side?
Yeah, man, everything is good. Training is good. Getting ready for this big trip in 2 weeks. So pretty excited.
Where are you going?
We're going to Cali.
Really?
Our master Joe Moera is getting his coral belt. Is that right? Something like that. Sorry to interrupt you guys, but let's fix this. It was actually his red belt he was getting, not his coral belt. Big difference. Sorry about that. Carry on. So
pretty awesome.
It's a big thing going on down in there. So we flying down there that first weekend of May to see him get his belt and stuff.
That's pretty awesome. It's a pretty special event, I'm sure. A lot of things changed since the last time I talked to you. But since then, since we met 2 and a little bit more than 2 years ago, you got your black belt, and you opened your gym and all that stuff. So congratulations, man.
Thank you. I didn't even realize it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's coming up. Yeah. Because we did our episode, back in November.
It's November
13th, 22nd. Yeah. I mean, okay. 2022. So coming up on 2 years.
So more like a year and a half, but a lot of things changed, obviously. So congratulations for the podcast. It's been doing pretty well. I think it's your 3rd season, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
3rd season, black belt, new gym, going pretty well, my guy.
Yeah, man. What's new with you, man? What's new with you in the world of jiu-jitsu?
A lot. I'm going to Alliance, one of the gyms that's probably around 2 hours away from here in 1 week. Actually, one of my first training partners, a guy I've known since high school. I'm in my 40s now, so obviously that's a while ago. And he's getting his black belt. He's a very well-deserving guy. He was my first ever training partner, really. So it's going to be pretty special, pretty cool.
Yeah, man. That's exciting, dude. It still doesn't feel real having a black belt.
Yeah. It's something that because when I started jiu-jitsu, I was already a black belt in other martial arts, right? And I wear that very proudly. But when I started jiu-jitsu, I felt like it was such a gap between a white and a blue belt, right? And in other martial arts, a blue belt is normally the 4th or 5th belt, right? So in jiu-jitsu, when they told me, blue belt's just a 2nd belt, I was like, kind of sucks because I'm used to seeing blue belts that are good, right? And the 2nd belt is like a yellow belt. But the first time I rolled with the blue belt, I got completely obliterated by a guy a lot smaller than me in size because I'm more or less at 5'10 and a half, maybe 210, 205. So I'm not a small guy. I'm not a big guy, but I'm not a small guy. And that guy was probably 6'1", 150. So I was like, I'm going to take this guy and just fold him in half and do whatever I want.
Light work.
And he was a recent blue belt, and he caught me in 7 triangles in a row, and I was like, what the hell is happening here, right? So it was a pretty big wake-up call. I was like, okay, so from when you're a white belt, then you get a blue belt. There's a pretty damn big gap there. So I was like, imagine a black belt. And when I started jiu-jitsu, my first coach was a black belt world champion. And and he's a monster physically. He trains 2-3 times a day. He's at the gym 4 days a week. He takes a lot of vitamins, and he was a pure. His style was just to punish you, right? So I was looking at that guy. I was like, "There's no way I'm going to reach that level anytime soon. It's going to take a long time." So it was a real wake up call for me when I started jiu-jitsu, and it's pretty cool. So all that to tell you that black belt is a big level. Black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu means a lot. So imagine guys like Joe Moreira, for example, that you're talking about, that he's going to get not his black belt. He's been a black belt for 30 years. He's going to get
forever,
coral
right?
belts, right? So these guys have seen, they were probably black belts when the first UFC started or very close to it. And so when Jiu-Jitsu came out, they knew what was happening. They were like, yeah, I know that. I'm a close to black belt. I mean, these guys probably at that point have been training for 5 to 10 years. So they're like, I know what's happening. This is not going to be pretty. And you push back. Since then, so many things happen. The sport has evolved so much, and you get legends like that getting their well-deserved higher rank. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's very cool that you're going to be there to be witness that, for yourself.
Yeah, it's very exciting because I did get a chance to see him last month. He was here in Michigan, did a seminar at affiliate school, and he's just like a big kid, man. We were talking about like, how do you feel about this belt? He's like, I don't know, I don't know why they giving me this. And, he's just extremely humble about it. But yeah, it's very exciting to see, man. Like I saw my instructor get his black belt, which was like a cultural shock within itself. And now we're talking about coral belt,
Yeah.
Not many people can say that, like, oh, I've seen someone get their coral belt.
No.
So it's exciting, man. It's exciting.
Yeah, you probably won't see that too much in your life, If you're going to be lucky to see one, so like forget seeing 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a very big chance you're never going to see another one. Right. At least for the promotion, because you've been invited to that promotion, which is pretty cool. When I started, or back in the day, I was part of Brazilian top team, and one of the founders, it's not the only one, but one of the founders of BTT was Murilo Bustamante, who used to be a UFC champion. He was a trainer for a lot of known guys in jiu-jitsu, but also he competed in UFC. And when I met him, he was a black belt. And not long after I left BTT, he got his coral belt. So I wasn't able to be there, but I remember him being a very nice, pretty humble guy, to be honest. So I feel I haven't met, because you don't meet people like that too often, right? Like normal people like me, I'm not going to meet people like that too often. So it was pretty cool for me to see that these guys carried themselves in such a relaxed, calm demeanor. They've seen it all. Nothing impresses them anymore, right? So I'm guessing for what I've seen from Murilo Bustamante and from what I'm hearing from you, these guys are like normal people, really, because they've seen it all. And if they had ego, and then after all these years, it kind of just left, and they're just like, I've been doing this for so long, it doesn't matter anymore, right? So it's pretty fun to see these guys in person. It's a shocker when you see legends like that, right? You don't see that often, unless maybe you live in California or stuff like that, or like in Rio. But like I'm from Canada, there's no coral belt in Canada. I don't think there's even one. So I've been lucky enough to train in big gyms, because right now for the last 5 years or so, I've been training with Gracie Baja, and we have very good athletes here. So the 2 teams I was part of in my life had great athletes. So I was very happy for that, and very lucky to meet them and train with them regularly. But, seeing legends that were there before the big burst of jiu-jitsu after UFC 1, seeing people like that saw the sport go from nothing to what it is today, filling arenas in Las Vegas and stuff like that, right? So it is pretty cool. And I think it's a very good thing for the youth and the new people to look at these people and see them and be like, look, I don't care what you did. You didn't do it as much as these guys. I don't care what you did. Yeah. These guys have seen them all. They've seen people like you and me come and go for 40 years or 30 years, So if these guys can be just normal and nice and down to earth, like there's no reason for us not to be, right? So it's pretty cool. So I wish I would have seen a promotion like that in my life. I haven't seen one yet. So it's very cool that you're going to be able to see one, especially, somebody with a good renowned name like that, and somebody who's known to be, I never read or heard anything bad about Joe Moreira. So it's pretty awesome that you're going to be there. He's a pretty big name. So that's cool.
Yeah. And what's so cool about it is he's like an uncle, so he's like a phone call away, or a message on social media away or whatever. So So we always get a time, like, get a chance to communicate and talk or whatever. And that's rare in itself. Because we're talking,
Yeah.
I would say royalty in a sense, but you're
Yes.
talking to like people. If you know jujitsu, you know these names, and it's like to y'all, it's like, oh my god, this dude's this and that. It's like, oh, he's just a family member. I can call him right now. Like I could, text him right now and say hi or whatever. But yeah, so the seminar we're going to be at, it's a like a 2-day event, and the first part, well, like the first day is the instructional. So it was like, just I guess basically learning or understanding how to teach under that system, and then he'll get his curl belt. But what makes it so much special is his master, Grandmaster Francisco Mansour, is going to be there too, and this is his last like seminar in the States.
Oh,
So he's
really?
going back to Brazil to retire.
Okay.
So it's like, man, and I haven't seen him since I was a white belt. So the first and only time I saw him is when he taught a seminar as a white, when I was a white belt. So to see him now, so many years later, I'm excited. So it's going to be big, man. I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get down there to see this happen.
Yeah, it's an important
Cool.
milestone for sure. Imagine a guy like that getting his coral belt, and that guy has a teacher, right? So that guy's teacher has seen even more. So
yeah,
I think it's a double event in a way. The fact that there's such a high legend is going to retire from the sport, and probably the jiu-jitsu had a really big impact and place in his life for so many decades. So it's a big thing just perhaps to have somebody like that just say, all right, this is my last time in the States, and then I'm going back home. I'm going to retire. I've been doing this for decades and decades, right? So you get that, and then you get a guy who's going to get his coral belt. So it's going to be a good weekend. I'm sure it's going to be pretty awesome to see all that. And it's, we don't hear stories like that too much. So it's pretty cool to hear it. And I just hope we'd hear a little bit more about stuff like that, events that take place like that, right? That's something. It's these are the names, the pioneers of our sport that slowly but surely are giving the space to the other generation. So it's fun to see that. They're legends. If not for them, we would not be here talking about this jiu-jitsu online, right? So it's awesome. These guys, we owe a lot to these guys, and it's insane that I consider myself a pretty regular guy. I'm a very chill, down to earth person too, and I'm an ordinary person. I'm not Gordon Ryan. I'm not Buchecha and guys like that, right? So to have access to so many legends by a chat, by attending seminars, talking with them. You go visit San Diego. You can always drop at Ethos and just train with all the guys, right? And I've spoken to Andre Galvao in the past. We've texted a little bit, and these guys they're the Michael Jordans and Wayne Gretzky's of our sport, but we can just have a chat with them easily. I don't know any sport. I don't know any discipline or sport that's like jiu-jitsu. The fact that you can have access to the greatest of all time just by talking with them, reaching out to them, they're going to answer. I don't know if you know Tom DeBlas, but if you want to talk about a guy who's easy to access, that guy's going to answer anybody all the time, and he's always chill, always nice, always open. You don't see that. You can't call Dwayne Casey, who's an NBA coach, the former coach for the Raptors, and you can't just write to Dwayne Casey and start talking with him, right? But you can do that in jiu-jitsu. You can talk to Gordon. You can talk with the coaches and all that stuff. So it's great. It's such a great sport to be in. It becomes such a big part of your life when you enter if you enter and you do it more casually and you don't really care about it, that's one thing. But if it's something that you end up being passionate about, I think jiu-jitsu is a great sport in the world to be passionate about because of that's one of the reasons, right? It's such a great thing to be part of. It's never ending, really, and it's a young sport, so it's growing exponentially all the time.
Yeah, and I always love hearing like those stories. that revolves around jiu-jitsu. Like there's one that's been floating around for like the last few weeks of this. I think he was like 73, I think, but he just got his black belt. And he was sitting there to explain the story like he wasn't doing it. He thought he signed his kids up for jiu-jitsu. They was like, no, you signed up. And he's like, all right. And he stuck with it. And he just got his black belt not long ago. And it's just imagine that.
You know, sometimes I'm in my 40s and sometimes I get home. Yeah, sorry. Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Yeah, it's like I just imagine you're looking for something similar to wrestling for your kids. And it's like, well, since you're here, you know, you signed up, might as well try a class. Yeah. And he's like, well, I'll try it anyway. And then, boom, you fall in love with it more than anybody else.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what happened with Buchecha too. Marcos Almeida Buchecha. I think what happened is his father enrolled his sister or something like that. And he started like accompanying his family to the class and he was like, meh. And then, you know, he tried it and he was like, oh, it's okay. But eventually the guy became one of the greatest of all time, 13-time IBBJF Black Belt World Champion, the only one who won 13 times. I think it's 13. So, you know, the guy is easily top 5 of the greatest of all time. And he didn't even want to try it at first. He just kind of accompanied his sister. Nobody knows who his sister is, though. But we all know who he is, right? So it's everybody has his own story, but at the end of the day, if you're passionate about it, you know, it's going to be so awesome. And then, you know, you get into this sport and there's so many different areas you can work on depending on your personality. You know how they always say that jiu-jitsu is kind of the nerdy sport in martial arts? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the reasons is, first of all, the theory, the details and the concepts and all the techniques, it's never ending, right? And it's so vast, it's so big that it gives you room to study as much as you want to. You could be a casual who comes once a week, do not care about belts and stuff like that, just to move a little bit because you think it's fun. And once you close your gym bag and you go home, you don't think about it until next class. And you can be a complete nerd like me, who I watch jiu-jitsu every day. Every day I watch jiu-jitsu, and some days I train also. So I'm a huge nerd. I follow all the social media. I have Flow Grappling. I watch every competition that I can. I try to watch every match. I watch instructionals every day. So, you know, I'm a super nerd of to study it because I've competed in jiu-jitsu, obviously, and over the years. And it's fun and all. And I think I have a good personality for that because I don't stress. I can sleep before a match and not worry about it. You know, I sleep on the side of the mat. And my cousin Jimmy that you've met earlier, like not too long ago, I think 2 weeks ago, when my cousin Jimmy, I remember at the National Pro, Abu Dhabi National Pro in 2018, I was sleeping on the side of the mat and he was jumping around a little bit stressed and he kind of kicked me. He was like, hey, dude, it's time for you. They called your name. I was like, oh, shit. All right. So I got up and I went to the mat. So I have a good, I think, character to compete because I'm not worried about that much. But it's not what makes me tick the most. What I like, the two things I enjoy most, except for rolling, obviously, is I really like the fact that I can study this as almost like a doctor would study medicine, right? So I can study this all the time, and we have all access to all these great resources right now. And that leads to one of my biggest passions in life, which is teaching. So, you know, I teach every hobby that I had in my whole life. I end up being either a coach after or a teacher because I like practiced music for a long time. Then I became a music teacher. I played basketball a long time. Then I became a basketball coach. And, you know, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then I eventually being a DM, hosting games and all that stuff. So I like being in front of people, right? So I'm like this super nerd, really, because I have all these hobbies of Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, but I also know how to fight, and I'm 200 pounds. So I'm not the perfect nerd, right? But in jiu-jitsu, obviously, it took the same path. In my real life, in my career at work, I say, because I also work, I don't only train. I'm a quality analyst and manufacturing specialist. So what I do is I analyze patterns and data, and I kind of try to fix or optimize processes with that. And I kind of apply this to my everyday life, but also in jiu-jitsu by studying the patterns and the concepts and all techniques. And at work, I coach people to go towards that mentality. It's called a Lean Six Sigma analysis, and I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt because it has colors like martial arts. It's Japanese, so I coach at work, and then I also eventually started coaching in martial arts. So it for me, jiu-jitsu is the best example. I've always liked sports. I've always been a nerdy guy who likes to read all the theory and all the details. I always like teaching. So I've never seen something as perfect for me as jiu-jitsu is, I think. And sadly, I started a little bit later in life. I was not training at 15. I was doing like boxing and stuff, but I was not doing jiu-jitsu. And I wish I had tried that in my 10, before my 20s.
Right.
Man. My life would be completely different. There's no chance I would do anything else than that right now. So it's such a great thing. It's such, I think it rewards you a lot. It's going to be a very rewarding experience depending on what you want to do. But if you want to invest time a little bit, it's so rewarding. It's so fun, right? So it's a great passion of mine. And this is my path. Everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different line, a different goal, a different reason to train. This is my reason to train is because I was a big fan of martial arts. I've been training martial arts for a long time. I felt like the ground game was what was missing for me. And when I tried it, I loved it. And I was like, okay, so I have teachers that are teaching pretty much the way they want to. It's not as structured as karate. Like, I think I could find myself pretty easily here. And it took probably 2.5 years. I was a blue belt and I started teaching already, like teaching in local at because I was a black belt in Kempo already. So I was teaching jiu-jitsu on off nights at the Kempo Academy. And that's how I kind of started teaching. So for me, it kind of filled everything that I like or everything that kind of attracts me in one subject. And there's no other subject that's like that for me. So it's fun. It's a big, it takes a big part of my life. So obviously I need to have a very understanding and a patient woman in my life, but she's doing a pretty good job right now. She's doing a very good job.
Yeah. Yeah, this it's more than an addiction when it comes to jiu-jitsu, because it took over my life just like it took over everybody else who touched this sport. But when you think about people that started this sport and you're like, man, then you hear the stories of like, this is not something I thought I was going to be doing. I just walked past the gym and I saw it, and then they blink and they're like the greatest of all times when it comes to the sport. And I know they sit back and think like, damn, I wonder what would have happened if I never stepped a foot in that gym. Because I ask myself that too all the time. Like, what would have been like if I would have procrastinated and said, you know what, I don't want to try this and never do it.
I do think about that a couple, maybe once or twice a year. I think that, and when I was 20, I was living in Montreal, and because I started training jiu-jitsu later, because that's when jiu-jitsu opened for the first time in my area, right? I had a little bit of ground game because of MMA that I did in my 20s, but I was not good, Obviously, with the story I told you earlier, first time I put a gi, I rolled with the blue belt, and he completely obliterated me, right? So, if I look at me, I ask myself sometimes, what would have happened if I never trained? I'd probably be doing still the older or more traditional martial arts that I would have done, that I was already practicing and doing. Maybe I would have stopped since then. Who knows? It's been quite a long time that I've been training jiu-jitsu right now. But I was always, when I was 20, I was living in Montreal. I had a friend who was training all the time in MMA, and he was like, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. You should try it. You should come with me and try it. And back then I was super laid back, and I was like, I'm not sure. It looks like a lot of work, and I'm sure I would like it, but I'm doing school right now. I don't think I have time. And I was a little bit lazy. So so I didn't go. So a couple of years later, when I started, I was like, man, I wish I would have listened to that guy. Right. So that's more the question I end up asking myself a little bit more often, especially when, you're older a little bit, a little pain here, a little pain there. It would have been easier to just start younger. But
Man.
But yeah, I do wonder what if I look at my life right now. I probably would be working at the same place, maybe doing still some traditional martial arts, but there's no chance it would have been taking so much space in my life. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like at this point everything like revolves around jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like that's just mine is like wife and kids, but that's like right there. And it's like if something comes up, it's like if it's on anything that has to do with jiu-jitsu, I'm like, yeah, I can't do it because I gotta go do this. Like, nope, I'm not missing class. I'm not missing no recordings. If I got an episode, I will record like there's been days I record like maybe like 5-6 episodes a day.
Oh man.
And they're like, man, you not tired? I'm like, no. I get to talk about jiu-jitsu. Why would I be tired? It's not a job. This is fun. I'm having a conversation among friends about jiu-jitsu, so why not?
So how's your wife with all the jiu-jitsu thing? Because I'm pretty sure it has to have changed your schedule a little bit. The fact that you started your podcast, you have your academy now that you teach and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I can say for the most part, since I started training up until now, she's been nothing but supportive. Like she caught on early, maybe even earlier than I did. Like, okay, this is important to him. He's starting to like, just merge himself into it. So she's cool with it. If I'm recording, I'll just let her know. She's like, okay, I'll keep the kids quiet, blah 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 blah. Or like, cause she has my schedule. Like when it comes to like jiu-jitsu or the podcast, she has my schedule. So it's like if once it goes off for me, it goes off for her. She's like, oh yeah, you got an episode to do or blah 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 blah. So she's been nothing but supportive. Like I can't thank her enough for that.
That's awesome. Well,
I've heard stories.
What?
I said I've heard stories where people saying like their wives or someone telling them like it's either me or jiu-jitsu, and I was like,
that's a pretty sucky question to be asked,
Right.
Thankfully, we don't have to address that one. I think my wife has been pretty supportive too.
Yeah.
Over the years, she's been very patient. When she met me, I was a blue belt, and I was training 6 days a week, competing all the time, and so it was not taking a large place in my life. When I met my girlfriend, it was taking every time off I had except at work, right? So I met her. I was like, oh, she's worth it. I'm gonna try and spend time with her, and cut the hours a little bit. But she was supportive, and she used to train too. Before we met each other, she used to train Muay Thai and she used to train Jiu-Jitsu. So obviously, I think it's like we often hear. I talk about Jiu-Jitsu so much that she's like, I'm not interested in training anymore. I hear enough about it without training, so I'm gonna stay out of this one. But she did it for a while and she enjoyed it. So I think she understood a little bit more of my reality. But obviously, sometimes she's like, well, are you going to train again tonight? Yeah, and I don't train 6 days a week like I used to, but I still train quite often. I coach 3 days a week, and then I train for myself on Tuesdays. Normally a 2.5 hour training, an hour gi, an hour no gi, or we split it in half. Most of the time with my cousin Jimmy that you talked to a couple of weeks ago. Because on Tuesdays, that's my day for me, right? So I teach a lot, but that's the day I'm going to try all my new stuff and experiment and try to connect everything together. So he's been training with me every training I have. He's always with me, my cousin. So he's my main training partner. He's been that way for a couple of years since COVID. So we test our stuff on Tuesdays. So that for me is a day that I'm not missing. So sometimes I have other coaches where I teach that I can't go tonight. Can you replace me? Like, yeah, I'm going to go. But that's still not going to take away my Thursday that I teach every time. It's always me. I teach 3 classes. And on Tuesday, that's solidified. These are my 2 days. And then I teach another day on Mondays at a martial art MMA academy. I teach grappling there to the team. So I normally train 3 days a week, maybe a 4th day, and that's pretty much it. So I train less than I used to. But I think my girlfriend is very supportive with all that too, which is important. One thing that I was wondering earlier, you mentioned that you're going to that seminar / promotion weekend, right? And then
Mhm.
the first day you talked about instructional, and you said it's pretty much to make sure, if I understand correctly, kind of make sure that everybody teaches in a similar way, like understands the curriculum and all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
So what's your favorite way of teaching? Because you're a teacher too, and you're going to that seminar. You haven't been there yet. So before you go to that seminar, and hopefully I get to hear you talk about it once you've gone, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you feel about, because there's many different training methods and many different teaching methods. So do you
Mhm.
have a preferred way of teaching? I've seen many different ways over my career in martial arts. So what's your favorite way to teach a class, for example? What would be the Lamar typical favorite ideal class?
Um, it kind of depends really. I love making sure I'm like a fundamentals guy. I love going over the basics. I'm not really big on flashy stuff, so I'm not gonna teach no flashy stuff. So I teach the basics. I like to drill. I like to make sure we're not just gonna go. If I'm not gonna explain the technique, you do it once or twice, and then we move on to something else. Like, no, we're gonna rep it, we're gonna drill it. I like to make sure everyone switches partners. That way, you get to try it on different body sizes and stuff like that. And then, but yeah, that's how I usually typically teach, man. I like to take it slow. I like to make sure that everyone is understanding, and I also like to learn from my students as well. Because if they see something that I haven't seen, I'll stop class and be like, hey, Eric about to show, he just saw something when we were going over to Kimura, right? Eric saw something a little bit different. All right, let's see it. I'm not gonna act like I know everything, but I like to learn. I like to teach at the same time. So that's usually how I function.
That's pretty good. I like the way you see it, and well, first of all, I think for the students, I think we don't do that enough. What you mentioned that you like to do, that somebody kind of came up with something and they ask you a question, for example, and you're like, you know what? Let's just wait a second here. Let's just talk about it. I think this is
Mm-hmm.
something that we should do more as teachers. So
Yeah.
I like that. I like that you said that. It's pretty good, pretty interesting too. I'm big on drilling too. My warm up is always drilling important techniques. So I always have a warm up at first, but I put like drills with jiu-jitsu to make sure that their muscle memory and all that. And yeah, I like to teach sequences. The way I teach is always sequences. So I'm going to start from A and then I'm going to end up going to B. But I'm going to show
Mm-hmm.
what the opportunities are and different reactions between them. So I teach sequences. And then at the end, I'm going to mix both and I'm going to have them drill the sequence that we learned. So, for example, if I want to teach somebody an arm triangle, from mount, the katagatame, I'm just going to start from, for example, an example of a sequence. We start from side control, and then I try to go for the knee on belly while keeping the pressure. The person kind of blocks with his hands, going to block the knee from coming on the stomach. You open the arm, you walk around, and you bring the arm up, and then from there, you get your mount position, and then you end up going for the katagatame, the arm triangle. So this is going to be a sequence
Mm-hmm.
for a class, right? So I teach,
Yeah.
first of all, the transition to the knee on belly and mount, and then the mount with the arm triangle, and then maybe a defense from either the arm triangle or the mount or the knee on belly. And then we're just going to drill it and drill it and drill it. So that's one kind of sequence I could use. So I think drilling is very important. Just like you said that you're a big drill guy. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the most important things because it's going to help you do them in a reasonable speed, and your muscle
Mm-hmm.
memory is going to catch up, and you're going to see where if you can't apply it against somebody who doesn't really defend at a normal speed, it's not going to work on full speed, right? Or somebody who defends.
Right.
So I appreciate what you said about, first of all, the drilling, but also the being open-minded. It's a proof. I feel somebody who's open-minded like you did is a proof that the person doesn't run or it's not driven by ego, right? Like
No. No.
it's inclusiveness, which is a very important thing for the students probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have loved to have that as a student. And it happened a couple of times. I'm someone who asks a lot of questions. So it was fun. It did happen once or twice in my life that I was asking questions and the person, you know what, it's a good question. How about we explain that to everybody? But as a teacher, I wish that the opportunity presented itself more often so I can do that. It's a good thing. I like the way you think about your classes and how you see the teaching thing.
Yeah, I like because I love discussing. I love debating. So we have those moments where I'll have an idea for a class. Like, okay, we're gonna go over arm lock sequence from top side, and that will be what I'm doing in my mind. But I get to class, we'll start, and someone will ask a question like, "Hey man, I noticed when you did this, you switched this way, and what if they turn their body this way?" And it's like, all right, let's see what happens. I never had an ego when it came to teaching because that's how my instructor was. He was like, hey, if you got questions, we gonna answer them. We gonna work them out. We gonna figure it out. We gonna make it work, and so on and so forth. So that's how I became. So we'll start a class with a whole lesson plan, but we'll end up working like one technique the whole time because we saw, someone saw a variation in it and whatnot. So it was like, hey, if you see that, let's work that. Let's get it to work for you, And it started to make like the newer students more susceptible to asking questions. Because when you say anybody got questions, everybody's like, we're gonna ask first. But now everyone's like, oh well, I got a question. I was like, all right, there we go. Good job.
What's your ideal number of students in your class? Do you prefer smaller classes, bigger classes? I'm sure you like both, but what do you prefer? What's your favorite number?
I like the smaller classes, 10, 12 people maybe. That way it's not like no one gets lost. No one gets lost in the crowd if they're not able to keep up, or no one feels intimidated because there's so many people. And you see, like, if you got more than a lot, you got a lot of people, you're going to have like a lot of color in there. So it's like, all right, there's a lot of blue belts, a lot of purple belts, a few brown belts, a couple black belts. But like, no, everyone's, keep it small. Like I said, 10, 12 students, everyone's learning with each other, and I can get to everybody. So I like smaller classes.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same for me. Yeah, 10, 15 students, it's probably the ideal. So you can get a chance to just see everybody and talk with everybody and correct them. And it's easier to just look at everybody at the same time. You try and see who does what right or wrong. If you have 50 students, a little bit harder. I gave seminars at some point where we had a lot of students, and it was not as easy as I would have hoped, but it was still an awesome experience for sure. But hopefully, because when I give seminars, it's normally around 3 hours, so I try to see at least everybody as much as possible. So I start from the beginning and go as far as I can go, and then at the next technique, I just start where I was and try to keep going, right? So it's not always easy, but I think I love seminars because it's fun, and most of the time it's not exactly at the same gym I train, so it's pretty cool. But I like 10, 15 people for sure. It's easier. I think it's the ideal number of students too.
Yeah, I love seminars and stuff like that because being an instructor, sometimes it feels nice to be a student again.
Yeah.
Just a student. Like I can rear back and put my instructor's belt on the wall and put my white belt back on and learn and sit back and learn. So
yeah,
I love a good seminar.
I love some too. 2 years ago, I went to Toronto for 3 days, and I got a seminar with Guillermo Mendez, one of the Mendez brothers from AOJ, and Tainan Dalpra for 3 days. And it was one of the most awesome experiences I've ever had in jiu-jitsu. Being there, listening to these guys talk, man. I tell you, I listen and I study jiu-jitsu a lot more than the average person. And I was listening to these people, and I'm like, compared to these guys, I'm like a white belt, and I pride myself on being somebody who studied it, and that's my main focus, right? But you listen to these people talk about it, and you look at them move, and everything was so perfect. You're like, I was a student for 3 days. I forgot everything I knew and just listened to what they were saying, trying to absorb as much as I could. I'm like, man, this is awesome. And when I went there, I had one of my friends who's a blue belt with us, and he looked at me at some point. He was like, dude, it's clear explanations. Everything makes sense, but I feel like I don't know anything. I was like, dude, I'm a black belt, and I don't know shit either, man. Like, these guys are next level. We're talking about prodigies right here, So I agree with you. It's an awesome thing to be there and seeing your heroes too. I have heroes. It's just like anybody else in jiu-jitsu, and I have favorite grapplers, and I had two of them there at the same time for 3 days, so that was pretty fun. I think you're more you do both. You do no gi and gi, but I think you prefer no gi, right?
Correct. I love a good no gi.
What do you like about no gi more than gi? Because I'm the opposite, but I still like both of them a lot. I love no gi. I love gi. I just prefer gi, but I train both of them almost equally. So what do you prefer? Why is it that you like no gi more than gi?
I think it's the pace of no gi. It's because with gi, it's like, you got grips, you got everything you can grab on to hold somebody down, and it drains you. But something about no gi, man, like it's the fluidity of it, and it's a lot of make sure your technique is tight, because you roll so long, you get sweaty and you start slipping off with people, and then it's like a whole nother fight. So it's just that pace, man. It's just that boom, 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 boom pace when it comes to no gi. Not saying you can't do that in gi, but I like that pace in no gi. In gi, I'm slow. I'm slow in gi.
I think honestly, I think everybody should, even the people that mostly train gi, I think they should all do no gi from time to time. And the reason is it can you can't stall as much in no gi. I started doing no gi to complement my gi training, really, because I was like, I want to be faster. I want to have better reflexes, faster reactions, and that's the way to go if you want no gi, right? So I think both of them have great advantages, pros and cons. If you look at the gi game, I think it's more complex. There's a lot more options. It's harder to pass guards in gi because of the friction, because of all the different grips. But on the other side, if you look at no gi, it's faster pace. Your pins go. So in gi, passing guard is harder, and it's fast. It's easier to control the opponent because of the grips. So in no gi, without all these grips, your pins need to be a lot better, a lot tighter. Yeah. Your position needs to be better. Your submission needs to be tighter. So I think it's very beneficial. Even people that don't really like no gi, I think they should all do it. I don't think I'm a gi guy, right? But I do not think that it's necessary for the people that want to compete in no gi. I don't think it's necessary for them to do gi. I think the opposite is not true, though. I think people that want to compete in gi should obviously train gi most of the time, but a little bit of no gi would not be a bad thing. It would force you to move more. I think it would help to train no gi, even for somebody who wants to compete in gi, because of the pace, because of the positioning, and how important it is for you to be tight, right? So I do see a lot of benefits to no gi. I think it's a great thing, and that's why I love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I went back and forth with it for a minute. Because my school, the school that we trained under, was predominantly gi. So it was like maybe once or twice we'll do like a no gi class. So then we started doing open mats. Started doing open mats again. So he was like, we roll a gi or no gi? I was like, man, we always do gi in class, man. Let's just, open mats do no gi. And ever since then, I was like, yep, I don't want to put a gi back on. I like this. I like this freedom. I like this movement.
Yeah.
I don't want to put a gi back on.
And my game is somewhat similar. Obviously, in both gi and no gi, I'm pretty comfortable being top or bottom. And I'm a guard
Mhm.
player in both anyways, but I don't play all the same guards. So I like all the lapel guards and like the De La Riva and the cross collar guard and all that stuff in gi. And in no gi,
Mhm.
I'm going to be closer a little bit. It's going to be more like a half butterfly guards, and all the X guards, like X guard, Ashigarami, and all that stuff. So my game
Mhm.
is not exactly the same. And my favorite attacks in no gi and gi are pretty different. So that's one of the reasons I appreciate it so much, because like my positioning, my guard passing is going to be similar, obviously, but my favorite techniques or my go-to techniques are not the same in both. So it's pretty fun
Right.
for me. It's refreshing to do the other one, right? So that's kind of why one of the reasons I train half and half.
Yeah, I've started to like realize how much of a difference of my game when it comes to like gi and no gi. Like in no gi, I'm usually like shooting for like guillotines and kimuras and stuff like that. But in gi, I'm chokes, X chokes, X chokes from anywhere I can get. I'm going to find my X choke. So it's weird. It's weird because it's like you're the same person. You're doing jujitsu, but something about when you take that gi on or you put that gi on is it's a switch.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm similar to you in that way. In no-gi, I'm gonna favor. Obviously, I'm gonna do more heel hooks in no-gi than in gi, but
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
I think my two favorite techniques in gi, in no-gi, sorry, my two favorite attacks would be guillotine two and kimuras. And in gi, it's gonna be all the lapel chokes. So the chokes from
Yeah.
the back, but with the lapel, and chokes from the top and all that stuff. So the X chokes and all that stuff. So I think lapel chokes are my favorite. And then probably I would go for toe holds and knee bars, because from the open guards from the bottom, they're always available. So yeah, so my techniques are not exactly the
Very,
same. They're
very
similar
similar
to you.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, and these are my favorite guards and my favorite techniques, and I like both, so it's always fun. It's never ending though. Like for a while, I was not using triangles and arm bars that much, and now for the last couple months, I've been really working on that and enjoying it more, because I kind of force myself to work on my weakness a lot, but
Yeah.
it's never
Yeah.
ending, right? So do you follow a little bit the circuit? Do you follow the competitions and all that stuff and the
Little bit. Not as much as I want to. Because it's just so many to keep up with. So it's like I'll maybe catch a highlight on YouTube or something. But yeah.
I try to follow it a lot. In 2022, I was at the ADCC in Vegas. I went to see it.
Okay.
It was awesome, and I got to meet so many people that it was insane. And I have a signed rash guard from Gordon Ryan, at home, and it's framed right now. I don't wear it, obviously,
All
but
right.
it's pretty cool. I follow that a lot. I really enjoy. You met my cousin Jimmy, right? And not only is he my main training partner, Jimmy's not is my cousin, right? But I don't have brothers and
Yeah.
sisters. I think he's the closest thing I have to a brother. It would be Jimmy.
Yeah. He was
So
a good guy.
he's an awesome guy, man. And I'm telling you, that guy's story, and you talked a lot about training and stuff, but that guy's side story, if you remove jiu-jitsu, he has probably one of the most inspiring and interesting stories you'll ever hear in your life. So, I think you have another show all for that. But so me and Jim, we try to
Yeah.
watch every event that happens. So the who's number one and who's next and all that stuff, right? And obviously the IBBGF Pan Ams and Worlds, gi, gi, all that stuff. So we try to watch as much as we can. So I'm a really big watcher of matches when I'm not watching instructionals. I don't watch TV that much outside of jiu-jitsu, not anymore. But yeah, there's some people that would be really interesting to train with. I'd like to have
Yeah.
like a jiu-jitsu vacation or something. I've had two vacations. I went to train to Thailand twice a couple years ago, and I've met some great jiu-jitsu people there, man. And there's a guy named Adam Shogun Keum, who's an instructor right now at MMA, Evolve MMA in Singapore. he had jiu-jitsu school in Bangkok, and I trained with him twice. I went there, and then I went back a couple months after to train with him again. Seeing that I went there and he was so down to earth, but he at the end of the training, first of all, he was the first guy to really dominate me while being smaller than me and using zero effort. When I finished my first roll with him, I was like, okay, now this is a high level black belt. This is what it feels like to face a guy that's so technical compared to me that he could just talk with everybody around while rolling with me. I would be like pedal to the metal, 40 pounds heavier than him. He completely demolished me. And that changed my perspective. I was like, I need to get to that level, because power is always going to be there. If I want to use strength, I'm going to have it, but I want to be good without it. So if I actually need it, I'm going to be able to do it. Right.
I want that fluidity, man. That just make my jiu-jitsu just smooth like butter.
Yeah. Takes a long damn time, man. That's for sure. So do you have, we all have our favorite athletes or, idols and stuff like that. Like, was there somebody that you looked up to when you started training, really, or maybe now over the years?
Honestly, no. Growing in the sport, I necessarily didn't have any like people like I really followed. Because I watched UFC a couple of times. I knew who Joe Moira was. I knew who Royce Gracie was. Before. But as time went on, like I started to really follow like Brandon Ortega, Damian Maia, Mikey Musumeci, the Rotolo brothers, like those guys in particular. I'm just like, and Demetrius Johnson just been tearing up jiu-jitsu now, which is crazy. But yeah, just those people in particular, man, I've been watching, and also Andre Galval. I watch a lot of his, the stuff that I see on YouTube about how he trains, he moves, his warm-ups and stuff like that. I'm like, shouldn't be able to do that for a big guy, but
yeah, well, Andre Galval is not a regular person.
I follow people that really like I admire and on and off the mat. So
yeah, I started watching jiu-jitsu after seeing a highlight on YouTube of Rafael Mendes from AOJ, who used back then to train with Andre Galval at Atos, right before the both Mendes left and started AOJ. So he was my first real model or person that was like, I want to try to do what he does. Obviously, I'm not the same size, not the same talent, not as agile, not as flexible. So it was a little bit harder, but I did pick up some stuff and enjoyed it. And then I saw Leandro Lo compete, and I was like, I want that guy's guard. So I started studying him and working on it, and I think I did a little bit towards in that direction. I met him in 2018. I trained with him for a day. It was awesome. And then over the years, my style kind of, I kind of built my own style. And then I saw the young AOJ prodigy, Tynan Dalpra. And he and me and Guy, we have a very similar style. It's just that he happens to be a lot better. But it was fun because I was with Jimmy at some point. I was like, what do you notice about this guy? He's like, he has the same style as you. I was like, yeah, we're going to say it that way because I'm older, right? But like, I see him as this is the peak level of what I could do if I had his talent, if I have done that my whole life, if I was agile. So I kind of see the best version I could have ever been of myself in that guy. So obviously there's 20 different levels between me and him, but I'm like, okay, so this is what I should look like if I was
right.
Him, So
that's how my jiu-jitsu is supposed to look.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I'm supposed to be. So sometimes I end up sucking a lot more than that. But right. It's pretty fun. So these are, for me, obviously Royce Gracie is the one who made me interested in jiu-jitsu. Being the age I am right now in my 40s, when the first UFCs came out, I used to watch them in VHS. So UFC 4, UFC 4 had just came out, and I rented them with one of my friends. And we watched UFC 1 to 4, and I was like, wow, that jiu-jitsu thing is pretty nice. I want to do that eventually. And it took a long time because there was no jiu-jitsu around me. But so
right.
10, 15 years later, then I did it, right? I started. But yeah, so Hoist was my first inspiration. But the person that made me a real fan of jiu-jitsu was probably Rafa Mendes, who I was watching him. I started following him and watching his videos and stuff like that. And since then, I came a long way. You know, I met his brother and trained with him. I trained with Tainan, and it was it's a great sport to be in. You know, I didn't meet that many of the Mount Rushmore yet. Sadly, my Mount Rushmore has Leandro Lo in it. I didn't meet him, which is great. Sadly, everything that happened was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But in my Mount Rushmore, there's obviously Marcelo Garcia. I didn't see him. I never met him yet. There's Roger Gracie. I went to London. I went to his gym, but he wasn't there. But I did spend some time with Rafael Lovato there, which was fun. Okay. He was training for his MMA title defense, but I never met Roger Gracie there, so that's sad. I didn't meet Buchecha. I trained with Buchecha. So in my Rushmore, really, there's two missing. Roger Gracie and Marcelo Garcia. So hopefully I get a chance to see them eventually. I'm going to ADCC again this summer. It's going to be in August. So I'm going to be there with a couple of friends. So hopefully you get to see a little bit more of them there. But this is going to be a pretty spectacular event, you know. See Gordon if he can cement himself even further as the no-gi greatest of all time. I think he's had that title for already a while. He's gonna want to win another absolute and just be like, "There's nothing you guys can do right now. You're pretty far from me." So
yeah, I mean, if he cleans it, like if he cleans up this time, there's no question it, man. I mean, there's nothing question it now, but it's really like solidifying it now.
Yeah, you know, obviously there's some, because the thing with Gordon is his size too. He's not a small guy. You know, I consider myself like a little bit above average size guy. You know, because I'm 210. You know, I'm not a small guy. But if you see the picture, I'll send you the picture later of me and Gordon. You'll see the size difference between me and him. It's ridiculous, right? So the guy is a monster. So obviously, you mentioned earlier Michael Mitsubishi, which I think is an example of a complete wizard. The guy is in a different dimension. His mind does not work the same way as most people.
No.
He's so technical, so good, you know, but he's 140 pounds. So he's not going to beat Buchecha and Gordon. Even if he would be way better, he would not beat these guys because of the size.
Right. Because of the size, right.
I think Gordon is the kind of guy that you look at him, and he's obviously a big guy, so not too many people can challenge him anyways. But when you see that guy roll with the guys his size, he's fighting black belts and he's making them look like white belts. You know, he's going to fight a leg locker. The guy's going to attack the leg, and Gory's just sitting there watching him work a little bit, and then just slips his foot at the right place, and then everything stops there, and you're like, okay, so that's all I need to do when somebody does that to me. Just slip my foot there and laugh, you know, like he does.
Right.
So he's so far ahead technically wise. I think he might be the only bigger guy that I've seen who has the technical level of these smaller guys. So they're not going to catch him, man. There's nobody close right now. I think the closest guy right now is slowly but surely is going to be Marigali, who trains with him and John. But I don't see him beating him right now. So we're lucky, you know. We came in, we started doing this sport when the first wave of the pioneers came in, and we're training during the expansion and the explosion of the sport. So we're seeing a lot of new people. You mentioned the Rotolo brothers earlier. These two brothers are simply fantastic to watch.
So, God, dude, just monsters, dude.
Yeah. It's what happens when you train your whole life and you have a twin brother, right?
Right. I mean, like it's the ultimate cheat code. You got someone your same age and same that got that love for it, just like you do. Y'all can just train all day, 24/7. y'all wanted to.
Yeah, I'm sure their parents were
sure.
pretty supportive and probably had mats in the garage or something like that. And these
Had
guys
to.
probably train every day, But it's a fun time to be watching the sport and all these legends in the making coming, and you see Mika Galvao and Ty Nadalpro and the two Rotola brothers and all these young kids. I say kids, they're young men now, but
Yeah.
We've been seeing them grow from teenager to world class, best in the world. So it's fun to see the explosion of the sport and seeing these guys, right? A lot of inspiration. The next generation, when you look at the kids right now training, the next generation is going to be mean, man. They're going to be good. They're going to be...
man, they're going to be so bad. It's going to be so bad.
Yeah.
It's going to be some crazy. We're going to see some craziness, man. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
So, question for you. I've kind of voiced my opinion about this on Facebook, and as someone who has a passion for the sport like we do, how do you feel about like when you see like UFC fighters get their black belt in the ring and they don't show no ground game?
I'm guessing you're talking about what happened not long ago with Pereira getting his belt.
It was Alex Cora, and then there was
the honest truth.
It was somebody else.
Well, the truth about it is this: like all the teachers, we all have, and me included, and you included, we all have our systems or a way of grading opponents, our students, right? I have a hard time judging on some other teacher giving a promotion if I'm not involved in it because I don't know all the details. Obviously, hopefully the person needs to have a decent ground game because, you look at John Jones, who's a purple belt.
Yeah.
Like John Jones is not a purple belt. I don't care how you look at it. Like that guy's not a purple belt. He showed up at Anaga at some point when it went into the black belt division and just went through everybody like butter, right? So
yeah,
like the guy's a grappling prodigy, really, and I'm sure he understands how to do an armbar and a rear naked choke and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's I think it's hard to be happy when I see a promotion like what you're mentioning, somebody I never saw do anything remotely close to being ground game. So I can't judge the coach because I'm sure the teacher evaluated the ground game at some point, maybe give him a test and all that stuff. But me, I'm like, I'm not going to be mad or upset because I don't know all the details, but I'm not going to be like excited about it.
Yeah.
It's not like if you would see you mentioned Demetrius Johnson earlier. Let's say that guy wins an MMA match and gets his black belt on live and he didn't do anything in the match with grappling. We've seen that guy pull some sick shit in MMA matches.
Yeah.
Throwing the guy off his feet, jumping into an armbar. And then we see him compete in IBBGF big competitions, dominating the brown belt. So, like, all right.
Dominating out like absolute. And it's like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah. Crazy. So, like if he would get a black belt, I would be happy. It was like, I know that guy's ground game is legit, right? Like nobody's going to debate that. When you see somebody that I've never heard or seen anything about him grappling or doing jiu-jitsu and all that, I cringe a little bit. I'm trying not to be judgmental and judge and be too vocal about it. But at the end of the day, I cringe a little bit and I'm like, okay, you got a belt. Hopefully you don't get it because of your name. But I've never heard or seen anything about you related to grappling at all. So
at all.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. And I would not have minded if I would not have seen it. I'm gonna go with it that way.
Right. Because I've seen one, I can't remember the fighter's name, and after he won his fight, his corner just threw him the belt. Like threw him his black belt. They didn't put him on him and just like and walked off. So I'm like, what is this? What?
Yeah, I don't like that much.
No.
First of all, I feel like a black belt, you should have some kind of ceremony at least. It's a big deal, and especially for somebody like us, people like us that are super passionate about it. So I understand somebody that would be unhappy and cringy like me, and looking at him like, oh, come on, man.
It was like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Not saying that he don't deserve it, but like we said, I've never seen him do much on the ground.
Yeah.
For him to be like, oh, here's a black belt, here's a jiu-jitsu black belt.
Yeah. Yeah. You see people like Demetrius or like GSP back in the day, George St. Pierre, right? Like you see these guys fighting kickboxers and punishing them standing, and then they fight grappling athletes and they just punish them on the ground. So you're like, all right, obviously that guy's ground game is legit, and I know a lot of people because a friend of mine who's the head instructor of Gracie Barra Canada, Professor Bruno Fernandez, who used to compete against Andre Galvao. He faced him in the final of the Worlds, I think. But great guy, a doctor, ophthalmologist. He is the one who gave George his black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. And he's a friend of mine. He's a great guy. And I was talking with him. I was like, so how was George really? And he's like, well, first of all, he's a bear. He's very powerful and strong, but he's good. He's very legit. And I was like, oh, that's fun because we see him do a lot of wrestling and ground and pound in MMA. But talking with people like that, he was like, no, his ground game is legit. He's a really good grappler. And when you see somebody like that award him and tell it that way, you're like, okay, so I believe him because I know the guy and he's an elite. So he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Oh, good. And then you see Demetrius Johnson pull some gangster move, like throwing the guy from the fence to an arm bar in the air. You're like, that's not luck, it's not his first rodeo. And then you see that guy, like everybody's like, I think he has a good ground game. And then he's destroying everybody at brown belt, and he's not a big guy going to do the absolute and just demolishes everybody there too. You're like there's proof behind it. You see that with celebrities too. You see people like, oh, celebrities belt and this and that. And then you get a guy like Tom Hardy who had blue belt, was competing everywhere he could.
Everywhere.
Yeah. So he would be somebody I'd love to train with, to be honest.
Yeah. He's on my list, man. He's definitely on my list I'm like, I want to roll with him. Yeah,
me too.
I want to roll with them.
Who would be your favorite people that you could roll with if you could?
I was actually about to ask you that because that's the question that we asked at the end of the show. But my list fluctuates, man. But it's always been, like I said, Brandon Ortega, Damian Maia for sure. Andre Galvao is another person because I like his style. His big man style. Tom Hardy is another person I would love to roll with. Obviously the Rotolo brothers, Mikey Musumeci, anybody, but those are like my main people that I would like. Yeah, I want to roll. I don't want to do no seminar. I don't want to do no class. I want to roll and then do a seminar. But
yeah,
I want to witness that first hand.
Yeah.
What about you, man? Who's your top three? I'm gonna say your top three people you would like to get a chance to roll with.
Top three. There's so many people I love to watch, but I would have said Leandro Lo if I could, but he's not there anymore, obviously, which is sad. Probably if I could roll with anybody, I would roll with Tainan Dallapra for sure. Kind of get my own medicine at a whole other level, to feel what it is. Because Tainan did some techniques on me when I trained with him, but we never rolled. So I would love to roll with Tainan. I wouldn't mind getting a shot at these Rotolo brothers, training with them. I think it would be pretty damn cool to train with them. These kids are phenomenal. They're so good and so I think they're special, and it would be very cool to see it in person. And after that, I'd love to see how it is with Mikey, because people say his guard is nearly impossible to pass. But I think if I could name a third one after the Rotolos I put together in Tainan, I'm sure it's going to be a painful experience, man. But I would learn so much, but it has to be Gordon. it has to be going right. You know, the best in the world, and he's so technical. I'm sure he would smash me and I would still learn. So I go with that. I'm going to go with Tainan, Gyo Nogi, doesn't matter. Gordon Ryan, and Rotola Brothers.
Good list.
Even if my favorite all time, even if my favorite all time is probably either Leandro Lowen or Rafa Mendes, these would be my 3 to roll.
Yeah, solid list. Yeah, unless you got anything else you want to add, man, you know, the floor is all yours. If not, you know, if you want to shout out your school, shout out anybody, let the people know what you got coming up, man. The floor is all yours.
All right. Well, first shout out is to obviously, I'm gonna congratulate you once again on your everything you're doing. I think it's a really cool platform, and it's really nice what you've been doing over the years. You know, I've seen the early stages, and I see you now, and I see you know, the promotion, the gym, and all that stuff. So it's very, very cool to see somebody passionate like you putting so much time and spreading the love of the sport. So I think the first one goes to you. The second one, obviously, my cousin Jimmy, who's my main training partner and responsible for so many things. It would be a whole show just to talk about him, but obviously something very close to me. My main guy right there. All my training partners in my school and all my friends I know all over the world with the jiu-jitsu, and all the fans too. But project wise, obviously I have some seminars coming, but one thing I'm gonna have, and I have instructionals on BJJ Fanatics on the and I'm gonna release one that's gonna be a monster in the next couple, probably in a month and a half. It's gonna be out in live. It's gonna be my new series, which is gonna be called the curriculum series, and it's gonna be the fundamentals one, which is gonna be 120 techniques. It's gonna be 10 DVDs, and I'm promising you, regardless of the belt level, this is going to be something worth watching. So I've been working a lot on this.
Parts.
It's going to be that. I'll send it to you for sure when I get it, if you want it. But
oh man, it's awesome.
It's going to be an incredible instructional. There's a lot of work. There's years of research and theory crafting and try to make it perfect before filming it. Now it's pretty much done. You're going to see me torture my cousin Jimmy a lot in it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, shout out to you and to for everything you're doing for the community, and all my friends and training partners, and obviously all the people that help by getting the instructionals and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Man, I appreciate everything you're doing, man. I appreciate everything you said, and yeah, it's I love this sport so much, man. It's just. I had to sit down and think about what can I do to give back to something that, gave a lot to me. And this is how I found it. And it's time to keep doing it, man, till I can't no more.
Same here.
All right, man. But I'll definitely put something together once, because I'm gonna try to film us going down there, the seminar and everything. And I'll definitely come back and talk about it. Probably have me and one of my training partners that's going down there with me. We'll probably do an episode on it. But
perfect.
I'm excited, and I'll definitely let you know how it goes. Perfect.
Well, I'm wishing all of you. Obviously, he's not going to hear this, but congratulations to Mr. Moreira. But yeah, so have a good time, and I hope you're going to enjoy that experience. It's going to be a hell of an experience and once in a lifetime probably, so enjoy that one, man.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited. All right, well, that's the end of today's episode. I would love to thank Jimmy once again for coming back and bless us with his jiu-jitsu knowledge. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please go and follow our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page to stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live jiu-jitsu. Have a great day.